Hello everyone, welcome to Marlin Chess Kids. Today I'll show you the gameplay by Alberto and Ismael. And the game starts with the pawn to d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight to c3, bishop to g7, e4, d6, and now the knight f3 and the black castling. And here is the first 10 move, and you can see that the white is slightly better in this version, and this opening we call this is a King Indian classical. So after this, the white continue to play bishop to e2, then knight to a6 and the white castling, then e5 was played and the bishop to e3 and c6 was played, and now the white pushed the pawn forwards to a d5 square. Then the black continued to play a knight to g4, and here the bishop to g5 attacking the queen, and the pawn pushed to f6 to block the attack. So here in the first 10 move, and you can see that the position of the white is still better in this position, and with the pieces is still have many places to move. After this, bishop to h4 and c5 was played to block the advance of the pawn. Then the knight to e3 and trying to get to the d3 square, and also trying to protect the pawn with the f4 pawn to push and attack the pawn at e5. So h5 was played, then a3 was played, and now the black played b3, then the knight to d3 and knight to h6, then bishop to g3, and here f5 was played, and in this version white is still better, and now the pawn after this push to f4 will be winning the bishop, or you can also push the pawn to h5 as well, h4 as well. So in this position, after this, the white prevent the pawn move to f4 and push the pawn f4 first and attack the pawn. So the pawn f takes the pawn and the knight takes e4, then bishop to f5 attacking the knight, and now the knight play a sacrifice of the knight to win 2 knight. For example, in this game the knight takes the pawn and the queen capture back. So this is a position of sacrifice knight to capture the 2 pawn, and this is a position sacrifice in the middle game. And here we have a very interesting, and we're going to look this game how the position sacrifice work. After this, the pawn capture back the pawn, and you can see that here you have 2 pieces protecting the pawn, and the bishop could not take back the pawn. And if you capture back the pawn, then the white will definitely winning the piece. So after the pawn capture, then the queen just move away, queen to d8. Then after this, h3 was played, and to allow the bishop to move to h2. Then h4 was played to attack the bishop, and queen the bishop moved to h2. Then the knight to f7 and trying to capture the pawn with the 2 pieces, and may bring the rook to attack. But the actual game, the queen, the bishop go to g4 and go for the exchange. And if the bishop capture, the pawn capture, then the rook will capture back, and we're winning another pawn in the exchange. So after this, the black capture the pawn, and now the queen capture, and here you have a very strong threat, such as the queen can capture the pawn at g3 as it's being unprotected. And also you can push the pawn forwards and attack the knight. So you have many activity for the white, and all the pieces are really active in the game. And also can bring the rook towards the d file or d file and have a strong attack. And here the pawn just can push up and attack towards the 7 square. So after this, the queen to g5 to go for the queen action to trade off the queen, as it poses a very strong threat. So after this, the white do not want to exchange and instead move the queen to e4. And now the white has a very strong composition, and these two pawns at the d and e file is very strong and can push forward to attack. So after this, the knight to h6 and d6 was played. After this, the knight to f5, and now the bishop to f4 to attack the queen. And if the queen back to d8, then the rook a to e1, preparing to push the pawn forwards, and also hoping to play a queen to e5 and check the king. And then the rook will come to e4 and able to check at the side rank. So after this, king to h7 and queen to b4, attacking the knight and also trying to pin the king. Then the queen to c8 to attack the queen and protect the knight. Then the queen back to d5 again. Then rook to d8 to prevent the pawn move forward. And now queen find another way to attack by playing a queen to f3. So after this position, the queen play queen to e6, and this is about the 30th move, and you can see the white position is clearly better in this game, even though the white has sacrificed a knight for the 2 pawns, and the pieces are all very actively and trying to make activity to attack. After this, bishop to g5 was played, and now rook to f8. Then the knight to play to f4, trying to attack the pawn, the queen, and also can go for a sacrifice, capturing the pawn at g6. So in the actual game, the queen captured the pawn, and here after capture the pawn, the white play a rook to e4 and attack the queen. And this rook with the idea of NA will capture the pawn and check the king. So queen play queen b5, and here in the actual game, the white play a knight e6 and attack the rook. So after play this one, it will be a slightly incorrect move. The correct move will be the knight capture the pawn, brilliant sacrifice, and if the king to capture back the knight, then preparing to open check with the bishop and attack the king. And if the king move away such as king to f7, then the queen will just capture the knight and check the king. And the king back to g8, then you can just capture, go to the e6 and check the king. And the king move to h7, the rook will just capture the pawn and check the king again. And now it can block with the bishop, then the rook check, and the king to g7, then the queen checkmate. So here is one of the very interesting idea to win. Another suggestion that if you capture the knight, and if you do not capture the knight, the black can play a knight g3 and go for the open check. So after this, the knight will capture the rook, and after rook capture the rook, then the rook will capture the pawn and check the king, and after king to g6, then the queen will just capture the knight and winning in the material. And if the queen capture the rook check, then the king to h2, and here now after the discover check we will be winning. And if your bishop capture the and attack the king, the queen will just capture the bishop, and the position will be winning for the white. So in the actual game, the white play knight to c6 to e6, and after this the knight go to g3 and check the king, and after this the white is clearly winning, and the game continue with the knight capture the rook and check the king, and now the rook capture back, and after this the rook capture the pawn at h4 and is winning with the mate, and it's about 16 checkmate. So if the king move to g8, and at this position the white is made into. I give you a couple of seconds to figure out how the white can mate into. Well, congratulations for those who found the answer. Those who like, here are the moves that the white played. In the actual game, after this move, the white play a queen to d5 and check the king. And after this, there's nothing, no place the king can move. The only way is to block with the rook. And after block the rook, the queen just capture and checkmate. And back to the position at king g8. If you capture, let's say the queen takes c5, then the game will be equal. For example, the queen will capture the rook and check, and after king to h2, then the queen can go to f5 and defending the pawn from push forwards, and also have the idea of go for capture the bishop and go for the exchange. So after this position, the black has an edge with the extra one knight in this game. Even though the two pawn is very strong, but the queen are able to prevent the pawn to move forward. And with this, thank you.